Colonel West served in the Army. He was a lieutenant colonel. He was a battalion commander in Iraq. He was elected in 2010 to the United States Congress. He served one term for the 22nd District of New York, of Florida. And, sorry, stop there. 22nd District of Florida. He served on the Armed Forces Committee and on the Small Business Committee. But one thing that a lot of you guys already know all this stuff. So, Colonel, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce this club to you. And I'm going to do that by just telling you a quick Marine story.
Okay.
When
Do I need to translate?
Yeah, he's making reference to the what Marine stands for. Muscles are required, intelligence not expected. But we have a response to that. It's Army stands for ain't ready for the Marines. Yeah. Okay. Not grammatically correct. We'll point that out. I actually led the 1st platoon into Iraq for my brigade in 2003, and in the prosecution of that war and liberating the country of Iraq, we were sent into the town of Afak, and my Marines were very wary of going into this town because pretty much every town they have been into at that point, they have been shot at. So they were in, I had a little powwow with my team leader, said, all right, Marines, we're going to go in this town. And they said, sir, that's really probably not a good idea. And I'm like, no, we need to go in. And there was a little bit of tension between me as a platoon commander, between my 3 team leaders about going in, but it was the right thing to do. We went into the town, and a crowd started gathering, and I get kind of nervous because when a crowd starts gathering, the bad things are about to happen, and they start getting together and they start chanting. And chanting gets louder and louder. I'm like, oh boy, here it goes. My guys getting ready. And then I kind of listen to it, and they're saying, Bush, Bush, Bush. And I said, Staff Sergeant, it's okay, they're Republicans. And I just want to say that kind of passion for liberation, for liberty, for conservative values is right here in this room. And there is no county in Texas that's more conservative than Collin County, and there's no club that's more important to that conservative flame than this club right here. When I ran for state representative in 2010, I could not have won without the support of the people in this room. And I'm not the only person that feels that way. There are a lot of candidates who came up here tonight who are seeking your support and wouldn't be in office if it wasn't for you. Colonel, this is the flame of conservative principles right here in the state of Texas. Colonel, go to Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dorinda asked me to come here tonight and talk to you all about America's greatness. And she asked me this simple question. She said, why should we keep fighting? And that's an easy layup. Because if you don't understand why we should keep fighting, then I don't know why you stood up and gave the pledge to the flag of the United States of America and you gave the pledge to the great state of Texas. Truly the bastion of liberty. Truly a beacon of liberty for the United States of America. But I want to start off by, and I'm just going to take about 25 minutes. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions maybe that you want to ask, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions. But I want to start off talking to you about why we should keep fighting. Because many years ago, Thomas Jefferson wrote a simple letter to the Danbury Baptist Convention in Danbury, Connecticut. And in that letter, he talked about what separation of church and state was to mean. And somehow, since the time when he wrote that letter, we have come to completely mistake and not understand what he referred to as separation of church and state. Because what Thomas Jefferson wanted was a nation, the United States of America, where the head of state could not also be the head of church. He did not want to have, as they had in England, where a king all of a sudden decided that he would establish a religion and he would be the head of that religion. And therefore, people that did not conform to that religious belief will be persecuted. That's why people came to these great shores of the United States of America. That's why Thomas Jefferson wanted to make sure that the state never persecuted people for their religious beliefs and their religious convictions. That's why you have in the First Amendment that very important right of the freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof. But how interesting it is that some 239 years later, we see a woman in the state of Kentucky being marched away, and she is spending the night in jail tonight simply because of her religious beliefs. Now, Josh Earnest, the White House spokesperson, says something so incredibly profound that I had to write it down because I wanted to share it with you all tonight. Because when Josh, not so earnest, was asked about what happened in Kentucky, this is his quote: "No public official is above the rule of law." Now, why should we keep fighting? Because obviously the President of the United States of America does not understand that he does not have the enumerated power when it comes to making any rules or laws when it comes to naturalization. That's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 of the Constitution. That's an enumerated power to the legislative branch. Obviously, the President of the United States of America does not understand. He does not have the power to do anything by way of shutting down Guantanamo Bay, because Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 says that all rules and matters regarding captures on land and sea is to the Congress of the United States of America. See, obviously the President does not understand that when you abandon 4 Americans to die and you stand up in front of their caskets and you tell a lie about it and you continue to promulgate that lie. Obviously, the President of the United States does not understand when right down at Fort Hood, Texas, my last duty station, when Nadal Hassan opened up shouting, "Allahu Akbar," killed 13 Americans, wounded another 31, and the President of the United States of America refers to it as workplace violence. He is the #1 public official in this land. So obviously he feels that he is above the law. Why should you keep fighting? Because if you allow the progressive socialist left to do the one thing that they have always wanted to do, and that is take God out of what this country stands for, to remove the Judeo-Christian faith heritage, because if the Creator does not exist, then, ladies and gentlemen, who is the person that grants you your unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? See, why should you keep fighting? Because 5 people are not the final word when it comes to deciding what the long-standing tradition of marriage is. And as Kim Davis said, I am standing here under God's authority, not man's authority. And if those 5 individuals believe that they are the ultimate judge, they are way wrong, because as we say down south in Georgia, that dog don't hunt. But why should you keep fighting? Because it is very interesting to me that 5 people can all of a sudden create a new right for individuals based upon their own sexual behavior. But yet those 5 individuals would not grant any type of leave for Americans to have their Second Amendment rights. If all of a sudden 5 individuals can tell every single state in the United States of America that you must accept same-sex marriage, well then why don't those same 5 individuals tell every single state in the United States of America, you will respect and accept the Second Amendment, and you will not infringe upon the people of the United States of America to keep and bear arms. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we should keep fighting. Why should we keep fighting? Because in 1979, we had another Democrat president that made the decision not to support the Shah of Iran, and then the Ayatollah Khamenei came back, and all of a sudden he said that we were the great Satan, and 52 Americans were taken hostage. Why should we keep fighting? Because that exact same country now holds 4 Americans hostage. Why should we keep fighting? Because in 1983, 241 Marines, sailors, and soldiers lost their lives at the Beirut barracks bombing. And guess what? It was done by Hezbollah, who is sponsored by Iran. Why should we keep fighting? Because right now, today, 20% of the deaths of our men and women in Iraq have been because of explosive force penetrators, the very lethal, incredible, improvised explosive device that has been provided to the terrorists from Iran. Somewhere between 500 to 600 of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines have lost their lives. Thousands others maimed and scarred for the rest of their lives. But yet, we're told one simple, foolish thing, that we have to go into an agreement with the #1 state sponsor of Islamic terrorism over the world. And now we find out that the president is working to not even allow this resolution to be voted on. He's got his 34 votes. Now he's trying to have a filibuster. And guess what? All he needs is 41. So 7 out of the 12 Democrats that have not committed themselves, if he gets those 7, guess what? It doesn't even come up for a vote. And then by fait accompli, $150 billion of unfrozen assets go back to this #1 state sponsor of Islamic terrorism. Why should we keep fighting? Because we've got to stand up for this great nation. We must realize that we cannot afford to have a 1938 Munich Accord moment, which is happening right now. Because Neville Chamberlain, after all that Adolf Hitler had done, taking the Rhineland without firing a shot, taking the Sudetenland, taking Czechoslovakia, annexing Austria, Neville Chamberlain comes back and waves a silly little piece of paper saying that there will be peace in our time, no different from what John Kerry and President Obama has said. There is not any peace when sheep lay down and try to have agreements with wolves, because wolves eat sheep. And why should we keep fighting? Because as I said before, Alexander the Great's famous quote, "I would not fear an army of lions if they were led by sheep, but I would fear an army of sheep if they were to be led by a lion." Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to keep fighting so that we can get lions back as our leaders in the United States of America. Because Iran cannot be trusted.
No.
Iran is already saying that the United Nations resolutions, we are not allowed, the United States of America, to be a part of any inspection team. There's no such thing as snapback inspections. They are already buying weapons and selling weapons and saying that no one's going to stop us from doing that. That's why we have to keep fighting. You know, the President of the United States of America is up in Alaska. He was doing a little dance with some school kids. It was very cute. Vladimir Putin and China's President Xi Jinping were in Beijing watching an incredible display of military might. Russia just completed military exercises in the Arctic. Russia is reestablishing military bases in the Arctic. Our president was up there acting like an accidental tourist. Russia has 40 icebreaker ships in their navy. The United States of America has none. The Chinese had 5 to 6 naval warships up there in international waters off the coast of Alaska. Russia has a research ship that came within 300 miles of the U.S. naval submarine base at Kings Island. It's being shattered. We have to keep fighting, because right now, ladies and gentlemen, we need to find leaders. We don't need to have people that believe campaign rhetoric is the means by which you establish your national security policy and your foreign policy. We cannot allow that to happen anymore. Why should we keep fighting? Because our men and women that are on the streets every single day in blue are under attack by this administration. I find it unconscionable that someone can actually stand up in the United States of America and say, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now. They can actually say pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. They can actually stand up and talk about Louis Farrakhan killing white people. But yet the person that's spending the night in jail is a Christian woman, all because she does not want to sign marriage licenses. And that's called hate speech. Well, what do you call the other thing? Why should we keep fighting? Because when you think about the incredible economic engine that is the state of Texas, where from what I heard, 1,000 people are moving every single day. When you look out and you see the construction cranes, when you understand people are coming here for economic opportunity, but then you look at our inner cities, and what do you see? Not economic opportunity. You see economic enslavement. Let me share with you a simple reason why we should keep fighting. Because 50 years ago, there was a president of the United States of America from the great state of Texas. His name was Lyndon Baines Johnson. And Lyndon Baines Johnson thought the government was the end all. The government could stop poverty. Tens of trillions of dollars later, we have more Americans in poverty. We have more Americans on food stamps. 50 years ago, Lyndon Johnson thought that he would do a great thing for women. When he said if a woman has a check out of wedlock, as long as she never has a man in the home, and she keeps continuing to have children, the government will continue to provide her a check. Guess what happened in the urban areas, in the inner city environments? 50 years ago, two-parent households in the black community was at 77%. Today, two-parent households in the black community is at 25%. You want to understand why you have all of the mayhem, the chaos, and the anarchy in the inner cities and the black communities? Because dads aren't there. And that's thanks to the government. That's why we have to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting because we want better opportunities. We don't want more dependency, but that's what the other side wants. And if we get to the point that people believe it is better to sit at home and wait for the federal government to send them some type of largesse, then guess what happens to this great experiment in liberty, freedom, and democracy? It will be over. Because as Alexis de Tocqueville said in the book Democracy in America in 1830, a democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until that time when the public realizes they can vote their own largesse from the treasury. From that point on, voters will always vote for the person that promises them the most benefits, with the ensuing result being the collapse of a democracy over loose fiscal policy followed by a dictatorship. That's why we have to keep fighting. Because more and more you hear from the other side, it's about wealth redistribution. It's about taking from the people that are working hard, getting up every day, putting their shoulder to the plow, living up to what this great nation has always been about, individual entrepreneurship and industrialism. But instead, we want to create more people to be dependent. It's no longer about economic opportunity. It's no longer about economic empowerment. It is now about economic enslavement. That's why we have to keep fighting. Because the other side, that's their only message. That's the only thing that they want, is more people dependent upon them. You know, it's so interesting. How many folks remember the Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker who just took those participation trophies and gave them back? Yeah. If you think about it, the Democrat Party is the party of the participation trophy. They don't have any regard for the people that are out there on the field working hard and scoring the touchdowns. As a matter of fact, what they believe is the people that are sitting on the sidelines, the people that are up there in the stands, they're just as equal as the people that are out there with their blood and sweat equity. And that's not how America is. You know, one of the things about college football, right now everyone starts out equal. Their record is 0-0. But somehow at the end of that season, there will be a champion. And see, we have to keep fighting because America is about victors. America is not about creating victims. And that is what continues to happen right now. Let me close by saying this, and then I'll be ready for your questions. Why should we keep fighting? Because I was born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, 7th February 1961. My neighborhood is the same neighborhood that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born and raised in. My elementary school was right across the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church. My father, Herman West Sr., was born in 1920 down south. My mother, Elizabeth Thomas West, was born 1931 down south. Their son, Alan, stands before you today. Why did they keep fighting? Because they knew that their son lived in the greatest nation that the world has ever known. They knew that their son could rise up and he could be a battalion commander of an artillery battalion in combat. They knew that their son could one day be a member of the United States House of Representatives, and represent the highest per capita income zip code in the entire country, Palm Beach Island. Rush Limbaugh was my constituent. That's what they fought for. And ladies and gentlemen, you're fighting here tonight so that you can make sure that children and grandchildren, subsequent generations of Americans, will say that they stood and they fought for us. They didn't give up. They didn't surrender. They made sure that we continue to have this freedom of religion so that we could pray to our Creator God. They made sure that we had those inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because they realized that the other side wanted to try to guarantee happiness. And ladies and gentlemen, man cannot guarantee your happiness, but God gives you the ability to go out and pursue your happiness. See, ladies and gentlemen, it is all about that thing which makes the United States of America the most unique, the most exceptional country that the world has ever known. We pass on better. We pass on greater than what was left for each and every one of us. That's part of our DNA. That's part of our genetic code. And it cannot be cut off at this moment in time. We are at the most critical point for the future and the legacy of this great constitutional republic. In December of 1775, Thomas Paine said these immortal words: "These are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from their duties. But to those who make a stand, they will deserve the love and admiration of all men and women." Why should we keep fighting? Because we want to make sure that in future times we will get the love and admiration of our children and our grandchildren. God bless you all and thank you.